We've always believed that strength can conquer everything. You push yourself to be recognized, to be loved, to avoid being seen as weak. You fear that if you stop, the world will move on without you. But perhaps what we most need to overcome is the habit of always having to be strong, because sometimes trying too hard for too long doesn't make us grow. It only leads us further away from who we truly are. While you keep proving that you're fine, your body quietly endures, until one day, it can no longer stay silent. It begins to speak for the soul you've neglected, through headaches, insomnia, a racing heartbeat, or that wordless exhaustion you can't explain. And so, you take another pill, another cup of coffee, and whisper to yourself, "I have to be stronger." But your body isn't betraying you. It's loving you, in the only way it knows how, by forcing you to stop so that you have no choice but to listen. Listen to that faint voice from deep within. "Please, let me be weak for a while so I can breathe again." That's what Dr. Gabor Maté reminds us in his book, When the Body Says No. It's not merely a book about illness. It's a mirror reflecting the way we live. The moments we stay silent, suppress, and pretend we're okay. He writes that the body and the mind are one. When the heart is wounded, the body speaks for it. And if we don't know how to say no to the world, the body will say no for us, through pain, exhaustion, or disease. This book doesn't teach us to fight our body, but to listen to it, to notice where within us is tense, tired, longing to rest, to say no without guilt, and above all, to recognize ourselves, that we too have the right to be tired, to be weak, to pause. This is Juliana Gray, where we explore gentle philosophies of living, so that we no longer wake each morning with a sigh, but begin to cherish life itself. Sometimes the body speaks the words the soul has kept silent. Dr. Gabor Maté is a world-renowned physician and therapist who has spent more than 3 decades exploring the deep connection between emotion, psychology, and illness. He doesn't heal only with medicine, but with listening to the body, to pain, and most importantly, to the silent stories the human soul has carried for far too long. Throughout his career, he has worked with thousands of patients suffering from chronic illnesses such as cancer, scleroderma, autoimmune disorders, stomach pain, and depression. Yet what troubles him most isn't the disease itself, it's the person behind it. He discovered that most of them share one thing in common. They are kind, responsible people who always put others first and rarely know how to say no. They strive to do everything right, to be worthy, to never disappoint, until their bodies are forced to speak. In When the Body Says No, Gabor Maté argues that illness is not merely a physical issue. It is often the result of suppressed emotions and unacknowledged wounds. When we force ourselves to stay strong, to endure, to appear fine instead of expressing how we truly feel, the unspoken will find another voice, through the body. Every ache, every wave of fatigue, every breakdown is a small yet urgent message. I am hurting. According to Maté, body and mind cannot be separated. The body is not just a vessel for the soul. It is the most honest mirror of it. When the soul is forgotten, the body speaks on its behalf, begging to be heard. And only when we recognize this connection, when we pause long enough to see that our emotions and our physical being move together, do we truly begin the journey of healing. Because your body is not betraying you. It is trying to tell you what your silence has hidden for too long. And perhaps what Dr. Gabor Maté wants each of us to understand is this. Sometimes, to truly heal, we don't need another prescription. We just need a moment of honesty with ourselves. A moment when we can finally admit, I'm tired. I too need to be loved, to rest, and to live as who I really am. Medicine can ease the pain, but only the heart knows what truly hurts. I still remember vividly the first time I took my mother to see a doctor. She had been suffering from stomach pain for months. Nothing she ate would sit right, and every night she lay awake until morning. I brought her from one hospital to another, met every top specialist I could find. Each doctor prescribed new medicine. Each said the same thing: just rest more, adjust your diet, and you'll be fine. But even with the medication, the pain always returned, dull, lingering, like a small but persistent signal reminding her that something inside wasn't right. Back then, I thought simply, maybe the doctors hadn't found the real cause yet. Maybe my mother needed stronger medicine or more tests. I didn't understand that what was hurting her wasn't in her stomach. It was in the things she had carried silently for years. The worries, the wounds, the quiet sacrifices, all compressed, stored within her, turning into an ache no medicine could ever heal. And I think many of us are just like my mother. We spend our lives taking care of others, being the dependable parent, the reliable colleague, the one who never lets anyone down. We don't want to worry anyone. We smile even when we feel trapped inside. We say, "I'm fine," when our hearts are overflowing with unspoken pain. Dr. Gabor Maté calls this the consequence of duality, a major flaw in modern medicine. It's how we've been taught to see ourselves as separate parts. The body is one thing, emotions another. When we have headaches, we go to a neurologist. When our stomach hurts, we see a gastroenterologist. When we can't sleep, we reach for sleeping pills. Everything is divided, measured, analyzed, and we forget that the human being was never meant to be split apart, because the body and the soul are one. Every emotion left unspoken will find another path to express itself, and the nearest path is the body. Anger swallowed down may become stomach pain. Fear of abandonment may turn into insomnia. Loneliness denied may evolve into an autoimmune disorder. And so we keep treating the body, forgetting that the wound began in the heart. Maté once shared the story of a woman with scleroderma, a serious autoimmune disease. She was gentle, patient, never raised her voice, always willing to help others. But it was that very kindness, that selflessness, that silenced her true feelings. She never allowed herself to be angry, sad, or tired. She endured quietly until her body, after years of being forced into silence, finally spoke, through illness. Her story reminded me of my mother and of myself. We're taught how to endure, but not how to let go. We're praised for being strong, but never taught how to be soft. We learn how to care for others, but forget how to care for ourselves. Modern medicine can see the damage inside our cells, but not the pain inside our hearts. It can treat the symptom, but it cannot touch the suffering. And that is why so many illnesses never truly heal, because physical pain is often the echo of a soul that has grown too weary. Maté says that to truly heal, we must turn inward, not to find fault, but to remember what we've forgotten. When we begin to speak honestly, to listen to our own feelings, to accept that I too need to be loved, to rest, to be weak, that's when the body finally finds peace again. Medicine can ease the pain, but only the heart knows what truly hurts. When we don't allow ourselves to cry, the body will cry for us. Mary was a small, gentle woman, a mother of 3. Everyone described her as kind and loving, yet behind that warmth lay a pain she herself could not see. Her story began with a tiny wound on her finger, something harmless, or so it seemed, but it refused to heal. The pain spread, and soon she was diagnosed with scleroderma, an autoimmune disorder in which the body begins to attack itself. Doctors tried everything, but nothing worked, as if Mary's body was quietly turning against her. When Dr. Gabor Maté met her, he sensed something deeper than illness. He simply asked, "Can you tell me about your life?" The question sounded ordinary, but Mary fell silent for a long time. Then tears began to fall. She told him she had been abused by her foster father when she was only 7. In her memory, she saw herself clutching her little sister, trembling in the rage of adults. From that moment, she learned never to cry, never to be weak, never to show fear, because if she fell apart, no one would be left to protect her sister. Mary grew up to be a devoted wife and mother, always caring for others, never letting anyone see her exhaustion. Yet deep inside, that frightened child remained, trapped in silence, never allowed to cry. And when the soul could no longer bear the weight, the body began to speak. Her illness was not merely an immune disorder. It was the cry of a heart forced into silence for far too long. When she could not express her anger, her fear, or her pain, her body did it for her, tightening, hardening, freezing, just as she had once tightened her heart to protect those she loved. When Mary shared her story, Dr. Maté didn't talk about medicine or solutions. He simply listened. And in that moment, her body trembled. She released her grip and finally cried. Perhaps for the first time in decades, she allowed herself to be weak, to feel. Those tears were not only from a grown woman, but from the child inside her who had been forced to grow up too soon. Because when we don't allow ourselves to cry, the body will cry for us. When we don't dare to say no, the body will say it instead. And what Mary teaches us is not how to cure disease, but how to look inward, to see the child within us who is still waiting to be loved, to be understood, and to be told, "You've endured enough." The body never lies. It simply speaks in a language we haven't yet learned to understand. Dr. Gabor Maté once said, "The body never lies. It only speaks in a different language, one we have not yet learned to listen to." And that language, in the realm of medicine, is called stress. Biologically, whenever we face pressure, the brain instantly activates the fight or flight response. The adrenal glands release hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, increasing heart rate, raising blood pressure, and mobilizing energy so we can respond. In that fleeting moment, the body becomes extraordinarily powerful. But this response was designed for short bursts, for our ancestors escaping wild animals, not for modern humans battling endless expectations and deadlines. The problem is that today, we live in permanent survival mode. We're no longer running from predators, but from disappointment, judgment, and the fear of not being enough. The body still releases the same flood of hormones, only now, the enemy isn't outside us, it's within. When stress becomes a daily companion, those hormones begin to destroy the body's natural balance. The immune system, meant to protect us, turns against us. Inflammation spreads, digestion falters, sleep becomes fragmented, the heart races, breathing shortens, and we call all of this chronic illness. But in truth, it's not just illness. It's the body's desperate cry after enduring too much for too long. You can see it every day in your own life. Sleepless nights filled with anxious thoughts, stomach pain after rushed meals, a racing heart from a single message from your boss. Each small symptom is a gentle reminder. Your body is trying to tell you something, but you still aren't listening. The most dangerous thing isn't pressure itself. It's not realizing that you're hurt. We keep believing we're in control, that a few days of rest or a few pills will make things right. But the body doesn't want you to pause briefly. It wants you to truly stop. It wants you to understand that every physical reaction is not just muscular fatigue. It's the soul's way of crying for help. Recognizing this connection is the first step toward healing. Because once we understand that stress doesn't just live in the mind, but in every cell of our being, we stop seeing the body as a traitor and start seeing it as a loyal friend, one that always tells the truth, always protects, and only ever asks us to listen. It's not pressure that destroys us. It's not knowing that we're already in pain. Do I truly believe I can handle everything, even as my body is already exhausted? Sometimes, what we need is not to be stronger, but to be brave enough to admit that we're tired. It sounds simple, yet for many adults, acknowledging that truth is harder than enduring the pain itself, because we've grown used to holding it all together, to being the one who's composed, responsible, dependable. We fear that if we falter, someone will be disappointed. We fear that if we stop, everything will fall apart. Dr. Gabor Maté calls awareness and acceptance the first step toward healing, because until we recognize that we're hurting, every attempt to heal is only temporary. Like patching a leaking roof in the middle of a storm, without knowing where the water seeps in. He once told the story of a man named Alan, the perfect image of modern success. Alan worked tirelessly, his schedule packed 7 days a week. He was always ready to help, never complained, never said no. To everyone around him, he was the embodiment of responsibility. But behind that admirable facade was a man living in constant tension. He believed that if he stopped striving, his worth would disappear. If he ever refused to help, he would be selfish. Alan believed pressure made him better. He called it positive stress. But Maté reminds us, the difference between good stress and bad stress isn't about how much we can endure, but whether we are truly listening to ourselves. When pressure comes from expectation, it becomes a burden. When it comes from self-compassion, it becomes motivation. Alan's body began to whisper long before it collapsed. A dull stomach ache, sleepless nights, a racing heart, stiff shoulders. He dismissed them as minor, the cost of hard work. Until one day, he collapsed at his desk, forced to face a truth his body had been shouting for years. He had simply refused to listen. Alan's story is a mirror for so many of us. We don't dare to stop, afraid of being left behind. We don't dare to say no, afraid to lose the image we've worked so hard to build. But it is exactly the things we hide, the fear, the exhaustion, the tears we never let fall, that slowly drain our strength. So before seeking healing, begin by looking inward. Ask yourself, am I living true to what I feel, or just trying to live up to what others expect? And another question, one that takes even greater courage to answer. Do I truly believe I can handle everything, even as my body is already exhausted? No emotion is bad. Only the ones we suppress for too long become dangerous, Dr. Gabor Maté once said, no emotion is bad. Only the ones we suppress for too long become dangerous. And among all the emotions we bury, anger is perhaps the most misunderstood. From a young age, we're taught that anger is wrong, that it means losing control. We grow up believing that good people stay calm, that maturity means restraint. So when we're hurt, we smile. When something feels unfair, we stay silent. And every time we whisper, it's fine, those emotions don't disappear. They sink deeper, layer by layer, building like quiet waves beneath the surface. Until one day, they can no longer be contained. Maté doesn't encourage outbursts. He teaches release. An outburst is when we lose control, unleashing anger on others to soothe ourselves. Release, on the other hand, is when we face our emotions, name them, feel them, and let them pass without causing harm. He suggests 3 steps to learn how to be angry the right way. Step 1, expression. Say what you truly feel. This makes me sad. I need time. Speaking your truth doesn't make you weak. It allows your emotions to be seen, instead of forcing your body to carry their weight. Step 2, understanding the root. Anger often grows from fear. Fear of being dismissed, abandoned, or unseen. When you recognize the real pain underneath, you begin to heal. Not to blame, but to stop hurting yourself. Step 3. Taking responsibility. Anger isn't about losing control. It's about defining your boundaries. When you understand what your anger is really telling you, you can choose to respond with calm and clarity. Maté reminds us that anger doesn't need to be silenced. It needs to be released. Suppression is what makes the body sick. Every unspoken rage becomes a weight pressing on your chest, your stomach, your breath. The more you stay silent, the louder your body must scream for you. Silence is not peace. Silence, held too long, becomes a cry for help. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do for yourself is to say, "I'm not okay." The body cannot heal if the soul remains lonely. There is a quiet irony in our modern world. We can connect with hundreds of people online, yet lose the deepest connection of all, the connection with ourselves. We talk every day, but rarely listen. We sit beside those we love, yet our minds wander, lost somewhere between deadlines, messages, and worries. Our bodies are here, but our souls are far away. Dr. Gabor Maté believes that much of the emotional suffering of modern life stems from a loss of emotional attachment. We no longer feel safe simply being ourselves. We hide because we fear rejection. We withdraw because we fear being hurt. And over time, we lose the ability to even recognize our own feelings. We no longer know whether we're happy, sad, angry, or simply lonely. True connection is not dependence. It isn't clinging to someone just to feel whole. Real connection means being able to open your heart to others while still remaining free within yourself. To love deeply, yet not lose yourself in that love. To be open, yet brave enough to say no when needed. To rediscover this kind of connection, Maté offers a few simple but transformative practices. First, keep an emotional journal. Spend just 5 minutes a day writing down what you feel, without judgment, without trying to fix it. Emotions don't need correction. They need acknowledgement. Second, speak honestly with those close to you. Don't just talk about work or plans. Share what's truly happening inside you. The worries, the joys, the exhaustion. When we dare to speak honestly, we invite others closer and give ourselves permission to be seen. Third, spend time in stillness. Turn off your phone. Take a walk. Sit quietly. Breathe. In silence, the noise within begins to soften, and you'll start to hear the small, gentle voice that has always been there. The voice of your heart. Maté writes, "The body cannot heal if the soul remains lonely." We were not born to live disconnected. We were born to feel, to connect, to love, and to be loved in return. Healing does not begin with medicine. It begins when we finally sit down and truly listen to our hearts. Because only when we reconnect with ourselves can we truly reconnect with the world around us. Healing isn't about running away from pain, but learning to sit beside it. One of the clearest signs that you are truly healing is when you no longer wish to be anyone else but yourself. When you can calmly say, "I'm trying, and I deserve to rest." Dr. Gabor Maté calls this the final stage of recovery, self-affirmation and self-ownership. Because no one can help you heal if you continue to live as though you are undeserving of love. We often think that recovery means returning to who we once were, healthy, energetic, strong like before. But healing isn't about going back. It's about becoming someone who loves themselves more deeply, listens more closely to their body, and knows when to stop. To do that, Maté suggests 2 simple but powerful practices. First, pursue a creative passion. Write, paint, garden, cook, knit, play music. anything that makes your soul feel alive. When you create, you give yourself permission to express, to breathe, to be free. That's when the energy of healing begins to flow back to you. Second, cultivate spiritual connection, not religion, but a deep sense of connection with the world and with yourself. Meditate, spend time in nature, or simply practice gratitude each morning. When you learn to see beauty in small things, your body and mind slowly find harmony again. And if you are listening to these words, it means you've already come farther than most. You're no longer looking for quick fixes to live faster. You're learning how to live deeper. You're no longer chasing perfection. You're seeking peace. If you've made it this far, you're one of the few who truly want to understand themselves. Someone brave enough to stop, look inward, and begin the journey home. Remember, healing isn't about running away from pain, but learning to sit beside it, hold its hand and whisper, "I'm here. I understand." When you can say those words, you've crossed the threshold from endurance to compassion. Because in the end, healing isn't about becoming who you used to be, but becoming someone who finally knows how to love themselves. Your body is not against you. It's trying to save you. As we near the end of this journey, we begin to understand that healing is not a destination. It is a return to ourselves. Dr. Gabor Maté teaches us 4 simple yet profound steps, 4 ways to listen to the body and reconnect with the soul. The first step is awareness and acceptance. Acknowledge that you're tired, that your mind and body are not always in harmony. Only when we dare to face that truth can real change begin. The second step is emotional release. Learn to speak your truth, to name your anger, your fear, your sadness, so they can pass through you instead of being trapped inside. Because silence for too long is not peace. It is another form of pain. The third step is connection and attachment. Return to what is real, to honest relationships, to nature, and to your own heart. You don't have to pretend you're fine. Being truthful about what you feel is enough. And the final step is affirmation and self-nurturing. Allow yourself to rest, to create, to be loved. Each morning, tell yourself, "I'm trying, and I deserve to be loved." Then you'll understand that when the body says no is not a sign of weakness, it is the voice of life itself. It's the body's gentle way of asking you to pause, to listen, and to love yourself once more. Your body is not against you. It's trying to save you from what you've forgotten to care for. If you've stayed until this moment, thank you for giving this time to yourself. And if you know someone who also needs an embrace, share this with them. Not to make them stronger, but to remind them that their body, too, is softly saying, "I just need a little love."